Well, that's good then. My grandmother said, but I couldn't really understand the meaning of her words. After taking my talented brother with them, my parents left this house because I'm stupid. I was the only one left behind. Now everyone's gone, and I'm lonely and all alone. Was I abandoned by my mom and dad? Yet my grandmother raised me with deep affection, providing delicious food and warm smiles. I learned how happy it is to be accepted just as I am. Then, after living freely for over 20 years, my parents appeared before me. They came back after seeing me, now an accomplished researcher in the media. They didn't hide their desires, approaching me with an ugly smile. I felt a boiling anger inside, witnessing their actions. I felt a boiling anger inside, seeing them in such a desperate situation due to their own actions. At the sight of them with their vile smiles, uttering words of fake praise like "you're amazing," or frantically spitting while screaming a daughter has a duty to help her parents, was so repulsive that it was hard to put my feelings into words. I felt an intense boiling sensation inside me, while my mind seemed to become sharper. These people haven't changed at all. They believe only their values are correct, using them to justify excluding others and rationalizing any kind of tyranny. Out without a thought for the people they hurt. Don't make me laugh. Coming to me now, just because you need something. So, I won't hold back anymore. I've already been walking my own path in life. I can't think of people who neglected me my whole life as family. I have no attachment to them. The time had come to tell my parents what I had always wanted to say. I renounce all inheritance and declare estrangement. I'm Jessica, a 29-year-old researcher. Ever since I was young, I loved playing outside, running around in mud puddles and sand pits until I was covered in dirt. When my science teacher talked about microorganisms, the idea of something invisible yet present fascinated me. Even though invisible to the naked eye, each looked completely different under a microscope. I wanted to see things I'd never seen before, so I asked for a picture book from the bookstore, but it wasn't enough. We didn't have a microscope at home, and I couldn't always use one at school. Seeing my disappointment, my teacher taught me about the work of microorganisms. For example, they eat fallen leaves and live in mud. Since leaves in mud were easy to find, I ended up getting muddy while playing outside as I searched for the results of microorganisms' activity. Jessica, why do you always dirty your clothes? How many times do I have to tell you the same thing? My mother would scold me every time I came home with dirty clothes. But I'd forget when I was playing. Especially my mother wanted me to engage in more traditionally feminine activities. She would say, "You're a girl, so wear a dress and playhouse." Playing outside isn't something girls should do. Because I preferred the exact opposite kind of play, I often got scolded by her. A tendency to get absorbed in things to the point of ignoring everything else was a problem at school too. During home visits, my teacher would comment, "Jessica often has trouble concentrating in class and can be found daydreaming. She gets easily distracted by things and tends to lose focus." She would smile awkwardly, apologize, and gently tell me, "Let's study hard." But as soon as the teacher left, she'd pull my arm and yell at me in a shrill voice. But I just found classes boring. The classes were often hard to follow, with teachers just rattling off content as they pleased, so I just listening would get bored. Just listening would bore me, and then my mind would wander to more interesting things. That's how it felt. That's why my test scores were always hit or miss. I'd score near perfect on some and then end up in the 20s on others. My inconsistency meant my report card was a mixed bag. The teachers at school would say, "It's way better to have interests, even if it means varying effort, than to have none at all." But having even one subject below average was unforgivable to my parents. They'd throw my report card aside with disgust, saying a fool has no place in this house. My parents were always boasting about their own excellence. My mom, a teacher at a competitive high school, took pride in having attended a university with high academic standards. She believed that good grades and getting into a top university were necessary for a great life. I noticed that people around her were somewhat put off by her rigid values, but my mom either didn't realize it or didn't care, even if she was told. In today's world, it's an educational society where you graduated from matters a lot. Anyone who doesn't get that is just a sore loser. It would have been better if she just looked down on others, but she was aggressive towards anyone with a differing opinion, so it was best to avoid conflict. My dad was similar. He graduated from medical school and became a medical researcher, often talking about his work at the university hospital and writing papers. He firmly believed academic background defined a person's worth, often demeaning patients and faculty from other departments based on their alma maters. So to them, my situation was embarrassingly unacceptable. Unfortunately, I had a brother who was the exact opposite. To the exact opposite of me, he was the perfect child my parents wanted, excelling in school and always obeying them. He was given luxurious, nutrition-focused meals and high-quality clothes. I, however, was given leftovers from what my brother and parents had. My clothes were either too small or hand-me-downs from my brother. Once I started prioritizing outdoor play over house play, the frequency of getting new clothes significantly dropped. My brother and I were treated differently based on our parents' values. Despite this, I still loved my brother, and he was kind to me. My brother, burdened with a ton of workbooks from our parents, was always at his study desk but would help me with my homework and even share his snacks with me, knowing I didn't get any. We both understood without saying it that it wasn't wise to go against our parents. The worst came when I was 9. Our parents, busy with their work and my brother's education, gradually treated me as if I were invisible. "Fend for yourself," my parents said, and they stopped preparing my meals. While my parents and brother were eating, I was locked in my room under the pretext of doing homework. I was allowed out when my brother went to take a bath, and then I would eat whatever I could find in the refrigerator. For clothes, I wore whatever was clean and available. However, my muddy clothes were often rejected even from the laundry and left on the floor. Conspicuously, a tablet was placed, showing videos on how to use the washing machine, and I learned to do my laundry by watching them. I remember feeling relieved that nobody commented when I managed it myself. There were days when I didn't see my parents at all. They were always busy with work, and on their days off, they focused on my brother. Even if we crossed paths inside the house, there was no eye contact. No response to my attempts at conversation. So I gradually stopped trying to talk, and my parents continued to ignore my existence even more. They read all the school handouts and provided everything I needed for school. So I just thought that was how things were supposed to be. Ex and authory, I guess my teachers, being colleagues of my mother, didn't think she would go to such lengths. There was never any communication about it. Then one day when I came back from school, I found a note on the living room table in our deserted house. The note said, "Your brother is going to a new school. We've made this house livable for you." At first, I didn't understand. I had heard from my brother himself that he might be transferring to another school. It seemed it wasn't final at that time, but I guess my parents had arranged everything. But the note said they had made the house livable for me. I read it over and over until I finally realized that I was being left behind. My parents were going with my brother, leaving the house for me, implying that they didn't need me anymore. But they didn't need me, I realized, and tears started to roll down my cheeks. I was just so sad because I wasn't good at studies, because I didn't obey, because I dirtied my clothes. No matter how hard I tried to get my parents' attention by doing good things and behaving well, once I did something wrong in their eyes, I was completely ignored. So I was abandoned, and that fact was unbearably sad. I cried out loud, wailing. As it got dark outside and I grew tired of crying, I started to think again. It's impossible for a 9-year-old child to live alone. Even if I had a house, what about food? Without money, I couldn't do anything, and I didn't want to be alone. Then I remembered. When I was little, I used to visit my grandparents often. They were my mother's parents, and I often stayed at their house. My grandmother worked as a caretaker at a foster home, a short drive away, and I have memories of going there with her. There were many kids my age, and I'm sure we played together. I think it was the year before last that my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother started living alone in that big house. At that time, my mother and grandmother had some kind of falling out, and I stopped going to my grandparents' house or seeing my grandmother. I'm sure mother was alone too. At that thought, I desperately searched for my grandmother's contact information. All I remembered was my mother's maiden name, my grandmother's last name. Relying on just that, I searched desperately all over the house and finally found it in an old handwritten contact book under the landline phone. There was my grandmother's last name and phone number. I had never made a phone call myself before, but it was like clutching at straws. I pushed the numbers on the contact book, but realized I needed to lift the receiver for it to work after doing it 3 times. I picked up the receiver, pressed it to my ear, and dialed the number. I heard the ringing tone, and after a few rings, the line clicked, cutting off the sound. "Yes, hello," I said, "Grandma." She immediately recognized it was me, and right there on the phone, I managed to explain the situation I was in. "Then," Grandma said, "I'll come right away," and hung up. Soon after, she came to pick me up in her car. But when she saw me as I opened the front door to greet her, she seemed to catch her breath. She must have been shocked by my shabby appearance, but I was too filled with relief to care. Like, there she was, the kind grandmother I remembered, right in front of me. I was so happy, I just threw myself into her arms. "Your beautiful hair and your clothes," as she hugged me tightly. Grandma said this, plucking my hair. Her touch was so gentle, it made me even happier. "Come on, grab what you need, and let's go to my place," Grandma said, patting my back. She was taking me to live with her. "Yeah, Mom and Dad, they're not coming back, are they?" I hesitated for a moment, feeling as if leaving this house would truly sever my ties with my family. But since, even though I had just cried so much about being abandoned, there was still a part of me that was clinging to hope. "I'm just a silly girl they didn't want," I says. "Well, isn't that good?" Grandma replied. I didn't understand what she meant by that and looked up at her. "You're free now, Jessica?" "You're free. What do you want to eat?" "I'll make it." "What do you want?" "What do you want to do?" She emphasized. Of course, we'll have some basic rules since we'll be living together, just to make sure neither of us feels bad or has a hard time," she said, smiling. "Yeah," I agreed. "Apart from that, you're free. Do lots of things you like, have fun," she added. Her words warmed something inside me. Being free to have fun, I thought. Touching my batteries, I wasn't quite sure what that life would be like, but an exciting expectation was growing inside me. Name, May text afterward. I moved in with my grandma and transferred to a new school. Me text. It was a peaceful rural area where grandma lived, and the school was small with few students. Name, Mame, texty, maybe because of that, being a new student was a novelty, and everyone was kind to me. Name, me prext. The teachers paid close attention to each student, and I no longer got scolded like before. Name, Mame, text Jessica. You have things you like. That's great. They to this nest. Name, my text. Research the things you're interested in. Name, name text. There should be books in the library. But they also reminded me balance is important. Pay attention in class, finish your homework, and then you can do lots of things you like. Everyone accepted me. They helped me when I didn't understand something. They didn't deny who I was. I think before, I was never really seen for who I am, but now they just naturally accepted me as I am. So I started to smile a lot more. And near Grandma's house, it was like a treasure trove for me. That was a place where ancient fossils and buried forests had been discovered, and although no major excavation work was being done now, remnants must still be there. Above all, I wondered what kind of microorganisms had lived and worked in that land. What kind of effects did they have? What were the layers of the Earth like? Did different things live in each layer? There was so much I wanted to know. Every day, I got covered in mud, running around exploring everywhere. Once, while digging out of curiosity, I found something like a small, shiny stone. I couldn't wait to find out what it was. Up something like a fossil, I was thrilled. Every day was exciting, full of discoveries, and fulfilling. I naturally came to think that this was something I wanted to continue doing for a long time. 20 years have passed since my parents left me behind. Now, at 29, I'm working in a research job specializing in biology. Raised by my grandmother, after high school, I went on to college for 4 years to earn my bachelor's degree, followed by a master's and doctorate, totaling another 4 years. I successfully defended my doctoral thesis and obtained my HD, landing a job at a well-regarded research institute right out of school. Right after taking me in, my grandmother somehow got in touch with my mother and insisted she pay for my education and upbringing. Actually, my mother was reluctant, but Grandma threatened to consult child services, the police, and hire a lawyer to sue her if she didn't fulfill her obligations. Worried about their reputation, my parents begrudgingly transferred the bare minimum amount of money to my grandmother. Of course, that wasn't enough for tuition, so I used grant-type scholarships and honors student programs to complete my studies as quickly as possible. Now, I'm working on things I've always been interested in, like fossil excavation, understanding the conditions and age of the land, making my life quite fulfilling. Although research institutes are known for their excessive overtime, often exceeding 100 hours a month, I don't differentiate between working hours and overtime. I research to satisfy my curiosity. I use numerous methods to find answers. It feels like there's just not enough time for the simple act of learning. Of course, some colleagues have left, unable to endure this environment, but for me, the job is enjoyable without any hardship. Being nicknamed a physical and mental powerhouse at work is something I take as a compliment. Having been denied the chance to do what I wanted and my feelings negated in the past, I relish the opportunity to delve into my interests and make new discoveries in this job. Since childhood, I've been intensely interested in one thing, which often became a target of criticism from adults, but now I can use this trait effectively in my work. My grandmother helped me learn how to manage this trait, turning it into a strength that I could use as my weapon. As a result, I understood how to study efficiently, improving my grades. I did well in my entrance exams and could fully utilize this trait in my research. Researchers organize and prioritize multiple tasks in my head, completing them one by one. It's the sensation of my brain nearly boiling over as I scrutinize information and find answers brings an indescribable pleasure. This job is indeed suited for me. Recently, I received an award from a prestigious society for discovering and elucidating the mechanisms of ancient organisms. Discovering and elucidating the unique functions of a rare microorganism found in the sand samples I analyzed during an overseas fossil excavation. It all started with my curiosity about why this microorganism was present in that particular stratum. As I unraveled the mystery through research, I learned about its critical role in evolution, prompting me to quickly write and submit a paper. This discovery kept me abroad longer than expected, and I got tied up in non-research related meetings and media interviews, consuming extra time. But I managed to return to the States, just when I thought I could return to the Institute to continue my other research. I was ordered by the director to take a few days off as a reward, delaying my plans. Since these opportunities are rare and there's not much else to do, I decided to visit my grandmother, so I headed straight to her place from the airport. You've been busy again, haven't you? Not really. It's more that the non-work stuff is bothersome. I saw you on TV. That party, you were wearing such a lovely dress. I was just dressed up and made up against my will. You looked like a completely different person than the usual Jessica. I was just tired. Grandma's pumpkin stew is still the best. That's good to hear. If you want more, help yourself. Shem. After arriving at my grandmother's house, I relaxed in the living room with her delicious pumpkin stew and tea. Grandma still lives alone in this house, and although she's getting on in years, she remains active working in the garden. I hope she stays healthy and energetic for a long time. Just then, the doorbell rang. The meal? That's unusual. My grandmother stood up and headed towards the entrance. Since I was little, this area has always been sparsely populated. To the neighbors, who know each family's composition, rarely use the intercom for visits due to their close-knit nature. Even now, the only people who diligently ring the doorbell are delivery personnel. Since my grandmother never uses online shopping, I was wondering what could have been delivered. I could hear the sound of her slippers scraping the floor and the front door opening. I thought Grandma would return immediately after receiving the package, but she didn't come back right away. Instead, there seemed to be some commotion at the entrance. Sensing the uneasy atmosphere, I decided to go to the entrance myself. Oh, Jessica. As I left the living room and peeked down the hallway to the entrance, I heard someone calling my name. Behind by turning grandmother, at the door stood a man and a woman. It was the woman who had called my name, Jessica. I'm so glad. I wanted to see you. Jessica, come here. At first, I didn't recognize them. After all, it had been 20 years since I last saw them. The two people, desperately calling my name with forced, ugly smiles, were my significantly aged father and mother. Why are they here? What do they want? After 20 years of no contact. After they abandoned me 20 years ago.
You and John have no face to show Jessica. Just stay out of it, Mom.
Jessica is my daughter.
You never acted like a parent. How dare you?
Jessica, come here. Let's celebrate. You've done well. My parents exclaimed in unison, still yelling. Observing my parents' commotion, I realized they knew about my recent award. They probably didn't expect me to be here, but the only connection they had to me was through my grandmother. So they came here, and by a stroke of bad luck for me, or good luck for them, they found me visiting. Keep it down, you're disturbing the neighbors, I stated firmly, and my parents stiffened and closed their mouths. They seemed to be somewhat aware of their absurd behavior. I won't let you inside the house. Just explain briefly why you are here. If you make any more noise or trouble, I'll call the police right away. Ow, speak. When I urged them to talk, my parents exchanged glances and then began their story. It's changed for my brother after he entered college. He got into one of the top universities, as my parents had hoped, but there he encountered values different from those of our parents for the first time. Bright students have strong wills and aspirations. Seeing his peers pursuing various dreams, my brother began to doubt the academic elitism he had been indoctrinated with and grew to despise our parents' abnormal obsession with educational credentials. My brother disappeared during his senior year of college, leaving a note saying, "Don't look for me." He's still missing to this day. After being abandoned by my brother, who they had invested so much time, effort, and money in, my parents went on a spending spree in their turmoil. To me, it made no sense, but maybe they were trying to fill the void of loneliness with other things. I wanted to say they should have been more concerned about my brother, but I realized once again these people couldn't possibly have such feelings. Actually, their savings dwindled, and it impacted their real lives. They started lashing out at others at their workplaces. My mother, a teacher, was overly strict with her students and excessively interfered with their futures, eventually causing several students to stop attending school. She also struggled with anxiety and depression, which made her relationships with others more challenging. She also harassed and verbally abused younger colleagues, leading to recordings of her actions being submitted to the education board, resulting in disciplinary action. Both parents are being threatened with lawsuits by lawyers from both sides. My father, too, behaved similarly, looking down on colleagues with lower educational backgrounds, making unbearable remarks and acting arrogantly. Not only that, but he also treated hospital patients in the same manner and even made advances towards female patients he fancied. It seems he'll soon be facing legal issues for that as well. I felt they had reached their limit with no one to stop them. My parents, with tears in their eyes, explained their situation and then leaned towards me, saying, "Jessica, we want to live together as a family, supporting each other." Right? You are really our daughter after all. You've done so well. Yes, amazing. You must be famous in your field by now. With fame comes authority. Then from now on, support each other. I interrupted their words with a question, shocking them. Family? What do you mean? At least we might share genes, but we're not a family, are we? Why would you say that? My mother's voice grew louder, trying to stop me. I even felt a sense of nostalgia in that unchanged voice of hers. And then I realized I'm not afraid of them anymore. Not even a little bit. Also, stop twisting things to your convenience, I said calmly, and my father was speechless. But my mother glared at me with wide eyes. "Jessica, how can you say that? We're family, we should support each other. You're just shocked because we haven't seen each other in so long, she said. Don't worry. From now on, we'll live together. And we can adapt to each other's pace. That's a joke, I replied. Absolutely not, I refuse. I don't want to talk to you ever again. Please leave. Even as my parents started yelling and screaming, my heart remained cold. Jessica, how can you talk to your parents like that? Hurry up and pack your things. Take us to your house. They demand it. I see my parents' words became increasingly rough, even though I said I didn't want to live together. They intended to barge into my home, which made me chuckle. In fact, it seemed that my expression reflected that sentiment, and I felt a faint smile forming. Just as they treated me like I'm not their child, I've never thought of them as parents. But to suddenly be told by strangers that we're a family and should live together is nothing but terrifying. Your child is just your son. I want nothing to do with you from now on. I don't even want to be invited to the funeral. I thought to myself, so this is what it means for your blood to boil. My gut was heating up, and it felt like my blood pressure was rising. However, my mind remained calm, as if a cool breeze was sweeping through my thoughts. Cutting ties might be necessary for inheritance issues that might arise in the future, but severing the parent-child relationship would be impossible. However, if I cut ties in practice and simply didn't communicate, that should work. Finally, my parents turned red in the face and started yelling, "What are you doing?" Acting on your own. Who do you think paid for everything? Daughters have an obligation to help their parents. Do you understand how incredibly ungrateful you sound? Once again, my parents began to yell, and I could only sigh. I wondered how I could make them understand. Do you seriously think that just by giving money, you can call yourselves parents? My grandmother said it in a calm voice. I thought she was absolutely right. But to me, those people weren't parents. Listen, being a parent is a fact, isn't it? That's right. It seemed my grandmother's words didn't reach them. They continued to make incomprehensible claims loudly. And to take section, my grandmother sighed at their persistently loud and incomprehensible arguments and turned on her heel. My parents were still shouting. At that moment, I suddenly heard a police siren getting louder and louder. After, and I wondered if there had been an accident, but the car stopped in front of my grandmother's house. Police officers got out of the car, and there was a crowd of people around the patrol car. Even in this rural area, if a loud argument like this happened, the neighbors would notice it quickly. It seemed they had called the police thinking it was a major incident. Despite being in the countryside, my parents seemed greatly flustered by the appearance of the police. They put on unnaturally friendly smiles and stammered in their responses. When I explained to the police that my parents left with only my older brother, and today, for the first time in 20 years, they said they want to live together, the people around us started to murmur. My parents glared at me. MC parents glared at me, but their response seemed to make the situation more believable. The police officers kept my parents away, and in the meantime, we closed the front door and locked all the doors. As expected, my parents didn't come to the house afterward. I heard from the neighbors that my seemingly nice parents had a conversation with the police for a while, and then they left as if nothing had happened. After that, several days passed, but there was no sign of my parents. It seems that even the neighbors are keeping an eye out, but it seems that the two of them haven't come near this area. Could it be that they just came to visit me as a last resort? I had to return home before the vacation ended, and I had relaxed a little. But when a visitor came to my grandmother's house again, he said, "Hey, long time no see, Jessica." I looked up and saw my big brother, a man with a sun-kissed tan and long hair casually tied up, stood there. At Hitchens, I realized it was my brother, who had gone missing just a while ago and hadn't been heard from for several years. I brought my brother into the living room and listened to the details. While interacting with various people in college, my brother became aware of our parents' abnormality and had been patiently waiting for an opportunity to escape from that house while working part-time. He had accumulated enough funds, and when the time was right, he left the country. His goal was to see various people and various parts of the world. It's while traveling around the world, he worked locally and he said he took many photos. When he posted those photos on social media, a publishing company contacted him, asking if he wanted to open a photography shop. He accepted the offer in exchange for them providing him with photography jobs, and that's why he had returned to the States after several years. When I was in Rome, I happened to see you on the news, Jessica. Oh, from when I won the award? Yeah, that's right. You mentioned Grandma in the interview, didn't you? He said, I came back to the States because I wanted to see Grandma, but I also wanted to meet you, Jessica. So I asked Grandma for your whereabouts. It worked out perfectly. My brother laughed cheerfully, but then he straightened up and looked at me seriously. Jessica, I'm really sorry for everything up until now, he said. Huh, why are you saying this all of a sudden? I asked. It's not sudden. I've been wanting to apologize to you every time I saw you, my brother replied. He wasn't smiling at all. We didn't have meals together, and on holidays, I was the only one our parents would take out. Even though there was an obvious difference in the clothes we wore, I didn't find it strange. I was just focused on my studies, and during that time, I thought we were just normal siblings who played together. He said, furrowing his brows and clenching his hands on his knees, shaking his head. When I mentioned having a sister to the people in my college seminar, sharing stories from our past, they were all shocked. That's when I finally realized that you had every reason to resent me. I should have gone to apologize immediately after leaving home. I shouldn't have procrastinated until a time like this. I'm sorry for living carefree while you were going through a tough life. I really should have gone to apologize as soon as I left home. But I'm sorry I put it off until now. I'm sorry that I thought it was normal for you to live a normal life when you were going through such a hard time. His heartfelt apology made me consider resenting my brother for the first time. However, I couldn't summon any negative feelings towards her. I didn't harbor thoughts like why only me or why just my brother. At that time, I was preoccupied with our parents to the point where those thoughts rarely crossed my mind. I'm not angry, and I don't resent you. Back then, you were the only one who really talked to me, I said. My brother's face contorted in a pained expression upon hearing these words. As tears welled up in my brother's eyes, our grandmother approached with mittened hands holding a plate. Would you both like to have some candied sweet potatoes? It was my grandmother's homemade candied sweet potatoes. They from the ones she had harvested from her garden and prepared since yesterday. Knowing this, I couldn't help but smile at my grandmother's deliberate attempt to recreate the atmosphere of the past, as if we had returned to those days. Wow, this brings back memories. I really want to eat some. Yeah, Grandma's candied sweet potatoes are delicious, aren't they? I loved them when I was a kid. I know. Please have as much as you want. Let's enjoy them together, sitting across from each other at the table for the first time in a long time. We both indulged in the same dish. Just that simple act brought tears to our eyes. Despite the slightly salty taste, it was a precious moment. Afterwards, I learned that our parents had to bear a significant amount of compensation and had further scandals that made headlines, ultimately losing their jobs. Currently, they seemed to be living a modest life, working alongside people they once looked down upon due to their lower educational backgrounds. They had to humble themselves before younger supervisors with only high school diplomas. It must have been a humbling experience, but I believed it was a necessary lesson for them. My brother and I, who had been separated for 20 years, began to frequently communicate, share meals, and visit our grandmother's house together. I was truly happy to spend time with my brother as a family, grateful for the moments we shared with our grandmother, my brother, and me. I felt content in both my personal and public life. Hey, you were listening to our conversation earlier, weren't you? Things just don't go as planned. Really, though, is getting a house supposed to be this hard? I thought it would be easier to get our hands on one. Hey, why don't you give us this house? You're going to give it away anyway, right? Then it's better to get it sooner. If you don't give us this house, I'll just stretch my wings and wait here until I get it. A house isn't something you can just hand over. True, I'll give you some time to think about it. But don't make me wait too long. I'm not very patient. After over 20 years of almost no contact, our eldest son, Michael, came back home. It seems like he and his wife are eyeing the $5 million mansion we built. Their true colors showed when they realized their intentions were clear. Else Michael's statement about stretching his wings here was a threat of elder abuse. But my husband and I won't be intimidated by such threats. We're going to leave this house. Does that mean we can have the house? That's right. Yay! We got the mansion. My husband and I decided to give the $5 million mansion to Michael and his wife and leave. They are happy but seem to not understand the implications of owning this house. I'm Helen, 68 years old. already in retirement. My husband, Steve, who is for years my senior, is also retired. We hear a lot about seniors struggling financially, but thankfully we're managing. This is all thanks to my husband's hard work over the years. He started a metalworking company in his 30s, and I helped out. It would have been tough in today's world. However, we were fortunate with the times and managed to keep the company going until retirement. We even built this magnificent $5 million house. We really built a big house, didn't we? Well, we were business owners, so we had to keep up appearances to some extent. But the sad years that even neighborhood buzzed when the house was built, I was a bit embarrassed, but my husband was proud. People think we just bought our house easily with our successful business, but we went through a lot to build it. That's why this house is our pride and joy. You shouldn't overdo it anymore. Knowing when to quit is important. 50 years ago, we stood at the entrance of our office, looking around the room. We remembered our struggles when we saw the worn-out desks and shelves full of documents. When we retired, we decided to sell the company we had worked so hard on. It was smaller than its peak, but it was the right decision for us. So it sold for less than we hoped, but it was more than enough for our retirement. We have 2 sons, Michael and Luke. We could have passed the company to them, but we chose not to. Luke moved out after college. Life's far away now. He is married with kids and is almost 40, doing well in his career. He didn't want to burden him with a shrinking business. As for Michael, we had no idea what he was doing or where he was. I've been invited by a friend, so I'm going to get a job after graduating high school and I'll be moving out. Invited by a friend? What kind of job is it? And where are you planning to move to? No need to tell me. Michael was what you'd call a troubled kid. He was kind until middle school, but then he got into bad company in high school. Steve tried to warn him, and I tried to reach out, but we were just annoying parents to him. Steve, come with me to Michael's room. What's up so early in the morning? Entering the room, which is usually messy, it strangely seemed clean. That what's going on? Plus all his clothes are gone. We realized what happened when we saw the neatly empty closet. The day after his high school graduation, Michael disappeared without a word. The reason his room looked clean was that he had taken all his essentials. Luke kept in touch and visited home, but we never heard from Michael. The only contact was a postcard about his marriage and child. We knew his address from the postcard, but didn't visit, fearing he'd find us annoying. I remember staring at that postcard, happy as long as he was doing well. But that postcard was from over 10 years ago. We don't know if he's still there. I wonder what Michael is doing now. He was a strong kid. He's probably doing fine. He's 40 now, married with kids. I doubt he's still causing trouble. Wow, he's 40 already. I hope he's doing all right. Steve mentioning Michael made me think of his childhood. We occasionally talk about Michael. No matter how troubled or out of touch, parents always worry about their children. But it's not just about worrying about our kids. We're in our late 60s to early 70s, and life isn't as easy as it used to be. Still, we don't want to burden our kids, so we plan to manage on our own as much as possible. Just when we thought that, we ended up causing trouble for our children. And this situation significantly changed our peaceful retirement life. Steve broke his leg while gardening and had to be hospitalized for 3 months. Although already weakened with age, he couldn't walk as before after the fracture healed. Now he's confined to a wheelchair. Sorry about this. You're handling work, childcare, and taking care of me. I'm just causing trouble. It's true. But this will probably be the last time you'll have to trouble me like this. On the day of my husband's discharge from the hospital, I pushed his wheelchair out of the hospital, engaging in a conversation that might seem humorless to anyone listening. A few days later, our younger son, Luke, came to visit after hearing about Steve's discharge. He had visited several times during the hospital stay too. Despite me telling him it's okay not to come because he lives far away, Luke still visits, making me feel guilty yet happy at the same time. Dad, it's great you got discharged. Sorry for worrying you. I'll be fine now. You're not fine. You're going to live in a wheelchair now, right? Mom's planning to take care of you. Isn't that like elderly care for the elderly? We'll use caregiving services, so it'll be okay. You both keep saying it's okay, but there are limits to what caregiving services can do. I've been saying this. Why don't you live with us? My wife and kids are understanding. Even with Steve's new wheelchair-bound life, I insisted on living just the two of us. Luke showed frustration. He understandably worried about us, but we didn't want to disrupt his life. Steve and I agreed, so we didn't need to discuss it further before responding to Luke's suggestion. We really don't want to be a burden on you and your family, Luke. I don't think of you as a burden at all. Even if you don't, we would still feel like we're imposing, right? But with Dad in a wheelchair now, it's okay. We decided to make our house wheelchair accessible, so living won't be a problem. We promise to rely on you if it becomes impossible for us to live alone. We'll call you then, okay? All right. Just promise you won't push yourselves too hard. But despite his dissatisfaction, Luke accepted our decision. Some might think we should just live with Luke since he's offering. But many seniors like us are reluctant to depend on their children. There's a strong impression that living together would be a burden to them. Half a year later, we were back to enjoying our quiet retirement life. We've made progress in making the house accessible for Steve's wheelchair use. Initially, I thought it would be challenging, but the accessibility modifications have made it feasible to assist Steve with the bathroom and bathing. Then one day, the doorbell rang and suddenly our life became hectic. Yes, who is it?
It's been a while.
You've changed quite a bit. Michael, has he come back? So let me go check. It's been a long time, Mom. So have you? Facing my eldest son, Michael, after 22 years, I wasn't sure how to act but managed to smile to match his. That the woman and child standing next to Steve must be his wife and grandson. I recognized the woman from the photo on a postcard. I say, The postcard announcing the birth of their child arrived 10 years ago, so the grandson must be about 10 years old. Nice to meet you, Helen. I apologize for the late introduction. Come on, Jason, say hello.
Hi, Grandma.
What a lively boy. I understand there have been various circumstances. And tell us all about it. I was feeling frustrated by my inability to move quickly. I laid out slippers at the entrance. But when I looked up after setting out the slippers, Michael and his family weren't looking inside the house. They were looking outside.
Outside, Mom. Those before we come in, I want to move some things in. Gotta finish quickly, so the movers aren't held up.
But things. I struggled to stand up and looked outside. I had assumed Michael might stay for a few nights with a few large suitcases, but there was a large moving truck outside.
You're living with Dad, right?
There must be plenty of spare rooms. Let me take a look. Come on, Jason, follow me. Wait a minute. As I was stunned by the truck, Michael with his son Jason confidently walked into the house. My slow movements couldn't stop them. They moved down the hallway with brisk footsteps. Dad, it's been a while. I'll come and say hi properly later. After a while, I heard Michael's voice from the living room. It seemed he had encountered Steve, but had just breezed past him after a brief word. I wanted to ask Michael's wife about the situation, but she was busy talking with the movers. So I went back to the living room to tell Steve what little I knew. What's going on? Michael and the kid went upstairs. I'm not sure yet. Michael has come back with his wife and grand soon, and there's a truck outside. It looks like he's looking for spare rooms. Is he planning to live here? Maybe. I guess so. He spent watching the movers pass by the living room with furniture. Steve and I fell silent. After a while, having finished giving instructions to the movers, Michael's family finally came into the living room. Sorry for delaying the talk. Please, we want to live here. Please let us, Michael pleaded. The stuff was already being moved in. How could we possibly say no in this situation? At least a reasonable explanation was needed. Why come back suddenly without any contact for so long?
Actually, after I left home, I was helping at my, her friend's restaurant, but it went under quickly. I couldn't come back home after leaving on my own, so I got a job. I got married and had a kid, but recently, that company went bankrupt. I didn't earn much as I only graduated high school, so I have no savings, and job hunting isn't going well.
So you've come back here because you're struggling to make a living. I know it's selfish. I understand I was wrong. But please, help us this one time. My wife and I will look for jobs, and as soon as we get back on our feet, we'll move out. Steve and I exchanged glances, unsure what to do. We had repeatedly refused to live with Luke, but should we live with Michael? If we refuse, Michael's family might end up homeless. And the stuff was already being moved in. Steve sighed heavily beside me. Having been married for years, I knew what his sigh meant. We'll let you stay until you get back on your feet. But you need to understand your father is wheelchair-bound and requires caregiving. You'll have to help with that. Oh, thank you. flutter of nuts despite almost no contact since he left home after high school. Allowing him to come back might seem too lenient. However, Michael seemed to be repenting his actions, and he came to us, pleading in front of his wife and child for his family's sake. But what matters is the future, not the past. Steve and I decided to let Michael's family stay, hoping for a better future. However, I felt a pang of guilt about Luke, who we had repeatedly refused to live with. The next day, I called Luke, feeling sorry, and told him about Michael moving in. So Michael came back. Setting aside what he's done until now, if someone's with you and Dad, I'll feel relieved. That's sneaky of him to move in his stuff first. Maybe I should have been more assertive like that, then I could have lived with you earlier. Sorry, Luke. You've always been so willing to live with us. It can't be helped, considering Michael's situation. Michael should have come back when his senior's place shut down instead of staying away for over 20 years. He's stubborn in strange ways. What? He was working at his friend's place after leaving high school. Yes. Apparently it was a bar. That despite running away, he was surprisingly close to home for a while. Hearing Luke's cheerful voice made me relieved. Michael had returned home. Luke wasn't opposed to us living with Michael. Now our family should be able to live together harmoniously like in the past. However, soon after Michael's family moved in, a tense atmosphere began to develop. Michael, are you making any progress with job hunting? Yeah, I'm on it. Michael is lounging on the living room sofa watching TV. He's been doing this since he came back home a week ago. The only times he moves from the sofa are for the bathroom, meals, and occasional errands outside. Dixon wail. I'd stayed quiet thinking it was okay for him to relax for a while after returning home, but a week seems too long now. I'm full. Michael's wife, Amy, comes in carrying a bunch of shopping bags and sets them down heavily in the living room. The sight of those shopping bags sends a chill down my spine. They're supposed to be short on money, which is why they came to our house, but Amy seems to be enjoying shopping. Amy, that's a lot of shopping.
I got it from my husband.
Michael, where did you get that money?
I borrowed it from Mom's purse. I'll pay it back later.
You took it from my purse?
Come on, don't make it sound so bad. I said I'll return it.
Michael acts as if he's done nothing wrong, not even looking my way as he continues watching TV. And Amy seems to be spending money knowingly it's ours. Feeling like there's a thief in our own home, I let out a heavy sigh. Suddenly, a loud crash shatters the peace as a window breaks. Startled by the sudden noise, everyone astounded me, the relaxed Michael, and the happily unpacking Amy turns towards the sound. In the midst of the broken glass lies a baseball. It looks like Jason, our grandson playing in the yard, broke it. I had warned him to do bat swinging practice in the yard, but to go to the park if he wanted to play with a ball. Clearly, he hadn't heeded that warning. Realizing he's in trouble, Jason slowly walks into the living room, eyes cast down. Didn't I tell you not to use balls in the yard? My scolding makes Jason start crying, though he tries to hold back his tears. Felt bad for scaring him with my loud voice, but he needed to be scolded for breaking the rule and the window. Someone could have been hurt by the broken glass. Hey! Yelling like that all of a sudden, what were you thinking? Shouldn't you first check if Jason is hurt? Scolding him immediately for doing something wrong? What era's parenting is that? Fixed with Steve in another room, I had no allies in the living room and ended up being the villain. Jason, I'm sorry for yelling at you so suddenly. That was wrong of me. But glared at by a tearful Jason, I felt guilty and ended up apologizing. But unable to meet his eyes, I looked at the broken window instead. Since Michael and Amy have no money, I doubt they plan to compensate for the window. That the more I thought about it, the more stressed I became, so I stopped thinking for a while. It's been just over a week since Michael's family moved in, and I'm already in shambles. At that time, I should have immediately consulted with my younger son, Luke, but I hesitated. Since Michael had just moved in, I felt it was wrong to ask for help so abruptly. Moreover, I was concerned that reaching out to Luke might lead to a conflict with Michael. A few days later, I left home early for an errand and returned in the evening. I felt something was off as I entered the house, so I quietly walked in without announcing my arrival. I sensed a different atmosphere, although nothing specific seemed wrong. As I neared the living room, I heard Michael and Amy's voices. I felt relieved, realizing my unease was just a misunderstanding.
Your dad seems healthier than I thought.
Yeah, I came back because I heard he had collapsed, but it was just an injury, not an illness.
Damn, someone gave us the wrong info. I can't do caregiving. There's no way I can get that close to such an old man. I don't want to either. But they agreed it's better to show their faces while they're still alive if they want to inherit this house.
And if we show up only after they're gone and then ask to move out, we might clash with the brother.
I know, but it'll be trouble if they live too long.
Oh, I wish they'd just disappear soon. Hearing this devilish conversation, I felt a chill run through my body. Michael and Amy must have returned to inherit our house, hearing that Steve had collapsed. I had a bad feeling after hearing their conversation. They had stated caregiving was too much for them, so I wondered how Steve had been all day while I was gone. I hurried to Steve's room and turned around in shock. There stood Michael and his wife, Amy, looking down on us with disdain. In my rush to check on Steve, it seems they noticed I was back by the sound of my hurried footsteps. Really, things just don't go as planned. Who knew it'd be this hard to inherit a house? I thought it'd be easier to get our hands on it.
Teasing Michael and Amy, having been caught discussing their true intentions, brazenly revealed their true colors.
They seemed ready to change their strategy to something even more sinister. Hey, why don't you just give us this house? You're going to give it to Michael anyway, right? So it's better if we get it sooner. If you don't give us this house, we'll just stretch our wings and wait here until we get it. We received and welcomed Michael's family into our home. Laughter from Michael and Amy echoed from the living room. Just with the treatment from Michael's family over the past week, my anger only grew. By the way, Mom, why did you call? Oh, it's nothing. Your story has settled it. At Pisayo Iconsecution, I had intended to consult Luke about whether to punish Michael, but realizing it was all a lie from the start, I made up my mind. I told Luke about the events of the past week and asked for his help. Then, with a fury as if he was about to leap through the phone, our younger son Luke burst into anger. "That's terrible. Threatening you to hand over the house. Don't worry about punishing Michael. I have another favor to ask." "Oh, feel free to say anything." After hanging up, I turned to Steve with determination in my eyes, and he returned the same gaze. Deciding to act quickly, we started making plans the next day. "Michael, Steve, and I are going to leave this house." "Does that mean we can have the house?" "Yes, that's what it means." "Day, we got the mansion." Eichel and Amy rejoiced, not really listening to me. "Are you listening?" I asked. "We'll handle the paperwork, okay?" "Leave that in more elections." I'll leave that to you. I'll just give you the documents to sign, so make sure you fill them out properly." "And we're going to stay at Luke's place, so we'll be here until our move is arranged. Please do, but leave as soon as you can." Seeing Michael and his wife Amy looking so happy was unpleasant. They don't seem to understand what it means to own a house, having always been irresponsible. It's rather ironic. Just a month later, we're staying at our younger son Luke's house. This was what I had asked him for over the phone. He and his wife and children had kindly welcomed us, being supportive of living together from the start. It's very comfortable here, unlike with Michael's family. However, Luke's house isn't modified for accessibility, so Steve seems to be facing some inconveniences. But our stay here is temporary, so I hope he can bear with it a little longer. And I expect Michael to call in a panic soon. Just as I thought, a few days later, Michael called. "What's this about?" I asked. "Expectations. I was expecting your call." "About that payment. Please take care of it." I knew why he was calling without him having to say. Therefore, when I answered the phone and heard the panic in Michael's first words, I couldn't help but laugh. "Why do we have to pay for the accessibility renovation costs?" I asked. "But you're getting the house, so it's only right that you pay for those expenses." We remodeled the house for Steve's needs. We remodeled the bathroom and toilet, eliminated steps throughout the house, installed sliding doors, and added a lift to the stairs, spending lavishly on these modifications. These modifications, which cost over $200,000, had enabled me to care for Steve. Including the payments over the past 3 years, we were still just below the $200,000 mark. Changing the name on a mortgage isn't easy. However, there are exceptions for situations like divorce or death. We managed to change it, citing our aging as the reason. "I heard you guys sold your company and have money. Why are you still paying off the loan? We used to run a business, right? It's kind of a habit to feel anxious without money on hand. We're old, and you never know when you might need money. Michael and Amy are almost penniless, so they obviously can't pay nearly $200,000. So Michael came to an obvious conclusion. Then we'll just sell the house. if we turn it into cash, we can pay off the loan and still have money left. No problem at all. That might be difficult. Why? Well, there's a loan for the renovations, so you can't sell it just like that, right? Heck, maybe a voluntary sale. But who would want a house so extensively modified for accessibility? Elderly people with physical limitations wanting a mansion. Hard to imagine. Then, if we demolish the house and just sell the land. We've got a mortgage on it, so if we demolish it, we'll need to remove the lien, right? Can you handle that, Michael? Besides demolishing, a house costs money too. Given its size, it might be around $200,000, or maybe less. Hold on, then how should I go about getting rid of the house? I don't know, Michael. We just gave the house to you because you wanted it. I don't know anything about what happens next. Also, I'm not sure if you know, but there are taxes like the gift tax and property tax. But don't forget to pay them. They have due dates. What? There's still more to pay. The house itself is pretty old, so it's not worth much anymore. But the land, it's big, right? That's still worth close to $4 million. Och kapter $60 $4 million. It's worth that much? This is no time to be happy. It means you have to pay taxes on this $4 million. We were paying more than $20,000 every year in property tax. I'm not sure about the gift tax, but it might be around $2 million. Why? Taxes are that high? Have you only ever paid things like car taxes or local taxes? Michael, who's been drifting from job to job and living day to day, seems unfamiliar with these money rules. My husband and I have run a company and paid astonishing amounts of taxes, so our sense of money might be a bit numb, thinking this amount is just a bit high. But for our eldest son, who's never handled big money, it seemed like an astronomical amount. He can't pay that kind of money. You wanted a big house, didn't you? If owning a big house is this tough, I wouldn't have wanted it. Come back. Help us out. Look, Dad's in a wheelchair, right? Life must be inconvenient at Luke's place, right? We'll help with the care. Sorry, but we're fine. We're staying at Luke's for now, but we're moving to a senior apartment near his place that's designed for accessibility and includes caregiving services. What should I do now? I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the details. If you can't make the payments, maybe you'll face foreclosure. Foreclosure? Does that mean I lose the house? 10. Help me out. The house that you built is going to be gone. You don't want that, do you? Bertipel and Tweedletid, we dated whether to abandon the house, but we decided to leave it to punish you. So, do whatever you want with the house. Consider this our final lesson to you. If you learn from this, start working seriously. I hung up on my eldest son, pushing him away. That was an expensive lesson. Do you think so? If Michael turns serious because of this, I'd say it's still cheap. We now in our 70s laughed for the first time over a difference in opinion about raising our children. Our eldest son and his wife seemed to have abandoned the mansion we gave them and moved somewhere else. Later, I heard the house and land were seized and put up for sale. According to relatives, they moved to a cheap apartment far away. There are rumors they went bankrupt, but even bankruptcy doesn't wipe out tax payments. So while the renovation debt might be cleared, the gift tax still needs to be paid. If the house and land are sold, they might be able to pay the gift tax. But if the house is a nuisance and only the land is sold after demolition, the cost of demolition will be deducted. And since the land is seized, it'll be auctioned or sold publicly. Such sales usually go for about half the original value. But even if the $40 million land is sold for about $2 million, the $2 million gift tax can be paid. $200,000 demolition cost would be the remaining debt for our eldest son. From over $1 million to $200,000. That's a relief. But for our job shirking, nearly penniless eldest son and his wife, it's still a harsh amount. It's sad that their child has to suffer because of this. A child has to live in extreme poverty, but learning life's harshness early might be good. They should learn that life costs more than just a pane of glass, and take us as a bad example. David, I had believed my husband would be happy too, but instead he grew distant, refusing to acknowledge David and eventually asked for a divorce. After the divorce, I learned from acquaintances that my husband had been having an affair with a young woman who had recently started working at his company. That's the Field Serious Towns. The revelation that he had been faithful and was unwilling to even pay child support for our son filled me with anger. However, for the sake of my precious son, I continued to work, switching jobs after the divorce and starting a new life. Having lost my parents at a young age, and with few relatives to rely on or friends to confide in, I felt anxious about raising David on my own. But seeing his smiling face when I came home gave me the strength to keep going. David grew up to be a kind-hearted and earnest young man, excelling academically through elementary, middle, and high school, and was expected to go to a prestigious university. However, he decided not to pursue higher education. That despite his teachers advising him to go to college, I worked extra shifts to ensure we wouldn't struggle financially if he chose to go. But he didn't want to burden me and chose not to attend. As a single mother working late nights, I worried him. His unexpected decision brought me to tears. I had always hoped he would go to college and learn as much as possible. Actually, as a mother, I should have been able to support him through college, but he couldn't bear to see me work so hard anymore. Mom, I'm going to work too, so you don't have to worry about me anymore. The thought of my son, who used to cry so much, worrying about me was incredibly touching. At the same time, I didn't want to make him worry any more than he already had. Reasons was too, once he started working, he began contributing to the household, which made it possible for me to work less. His stable job at a major company helped ensure a steady income. After 5 years of working, David married his childhood friend Rhea, a kind and caring woman who worried about me and suggested we live together. David had been talking to Rhea about me since they got married. They even bought a new house for us all to live in together. So I moved out of the cheap apartment I had lived in since the divorce and started living with David and his family. I'm so grateful to David, who's grown up and become a responsible adult. Thank you for everything you've done for me, I said to him, filled with gratitude and guilt.
He replied with the same smile he's always had, saying he was happy to live with me.
I want to give back to you for raising me on your own. I still remember tearing up at those words, deeply moved by my son's concern. Time has passed, and now David has been promoted and is doing well at work. I had hoped to see my grandchildren, but since both David and Ria work, they haven't had children yet. Still, I started saving money, hoping it would help them in the future. My hardships are a small price to pay if it benefits my grandchild someday.
For sure, you don't need to worry, Mom. I'm working too.
I'd shake my head slightly and reply, I want to work. Having savings for emergencies is important. There was a time in the past when my ex-husband secretly got into debt over his obsession with gambling. Upseller, when the repayment day came, he couldn't pay back, and scary people even showed up at our house. At the time, I managed to settle the situation by giving away all the savings I had made in place of my ex-husband. Since then, I've been diligently saving money, keeping it in my bank account for any emergencies. It was about 1.5 years after I started my part-time job. That day, there was a family gathering, so I had been at my relative's house since morning. It had been years since our last meeting, so we had a lot of catching up to do, and time flew by quickly. Usually, Aria and I share household chores, but that day she suddenly had to work, leaving me in charge. I needed to prepare dinner before David and the others returned home. When I hurried back home, I noticed a familiar face standing in front of the house. There were a few neighbors and George, our next-door neighbor.
Strange stars. Where have you been all this time leaving a baby alone?
The baby has been crying outside the house the whole time.
Up behind George, who is yelling at me, I could see his wife, Julia.
Beast with the cold stares of the neighbors and Julia, I was completely confused. There shouldn't be any baby crying at my house, as there were no children there. There's no baby at my house.
But he insisted that I'll bet he had heard a baby crying.
Agreeing with George, the neighbors and Julia also claimed they heard the baby's cries. Don't lie. We definitely heard a baby crying.
I really don't know anything about it. My explanation didn't seem to convince them. Instead, the distrust towards me seemed to grow, and the neighbors started to glare at me coldly. In the end, no one listened to my side of the story. I decided to tell David and the others about the incident. David looked puzzled, but his wife, Raya, just suggested it might have been a misunderstanding. It could have been the sound from the TV, or it could have been the vacuum cleaner that sounded like such prowlers. But everyone heard the baby crying. I said, maybe it was the sound from the TV, or it could have been the vacuum cleaner that sounded like that. It's hard to believe that such sounds could be mistaken for a baby's cries. David didn't seem interested in identifying the source of the noise, just suggesting, let's go back and check. I just suggested it was probably a mistake as I struggled with my dissatisfaction. Ria abruptly ended the conversation. If it's about ghosts, it's scary, right? Was Ria always the type to cut into conversations and end them like this? But faced with her cheerful voice, I couldn't say anything else. In the end, the cause remained unknown, and the topic was dropped. A few days later, as I was returning home from my part-time job as usual, I bumped into George and his wife. As we passed each other, I greeted them, but they didn't greet me back. Instead, George approached me angrily. Enough is enough. Your baby is too loud. As I said before, there's no baby at my house. Despite my words, George shook his head, insisting it was a lie, and began shouting in front of my house. The baby might be in danger. Don't scream at or hurt the baby, he irrationally accused. I pleaded with him to stop spreading baseless lies, but George wouldn't listen. Up a fierce and horrid leer. As he continued to raise his voice in front of my house, neighbors started peeking out of their windows to see what was happening. Unable to withstand the stares of those around me, I eventually shouted out, "There's really no baby here. Please stop spreading lies." As I said this, George glared at me intensely and spat out liars before walking away. I let out a small sigh over this baseless accusation. Why would they hear a baby's cry coming from my house? The more I thought about it, the more it confused me, and I even started to get a headache. But the harassment from George and the others didn't stop there. Hence, a paper labeled liaries was stuck on my door, and another time a neighbor told me, "Stop causing trouble," as we passed each other. I tried discussing it with David, but we couldn't come up with any solution since neither of us had any clue. Just amidst accumulating fatigue and worry, I continued with my daily life. Recently, I've been afraid to even meet my neighbors, making it hard to step outside. Why would they hear a baby's cry coming from my house? However, on that day, I had my annual health checkup and had to go out, so I quickly headed to the hospital. As I was waiting in the waiting room after registering, I saw a familiar face walking from the maternity ward. Emily. She was Emily, a childhood friend of David and the others. When she saw me, she stepped back in utter surprise. As I approached her, I noticed she was holding a small sleeping baby in her arms. I hadn't heard anything about her getting married or pregnant from David, but there she was with a new baby. But it seemed she was now a mother. We used to play together with David and others, and she often came to our house. I was astonished to see that Emily, whom I hadn't met for so many years, now had a child. While I was surprised, I asked her when she got married.
I got pregnant, so I got married.
She had already had a small wedding with just family, and was now busy with her new life as a mother. Having raised David on my own, I understood the challenges of parenting. I asked if she wanted to have tea, but she politely declined with a troubled smile. That's when I felt something was off. Emily used to be more approachable, always wearing a bright smile, and would excitedly run up to me whenever we met by chance. But now She just showed a strained smile and seemed to avoid getting into deep conversations, quickly leaving. The Emily who used to chat with me so freely seemed to have grown up and lost the carefree smile of her younger days. Feeling a bit sad, I waved goodbye to Emily. I couldn't understand why Rhea, who was always so kind, was being so adamantly opposed. Attain, I questioned. Her current job was at a company she had longed to join, and both the work and the company culture seemed to suit her well. If we moved now, Rhea might have to consider changing jobs, which could mean giving up work she loves. The moving alone wouldn't solve anything. Expectations in the end, we didn't discuss moving any further, hoping instead that the harassment would stop. A few days later, I received a call about my health checkup results, and with a heavy heart headed to the hospital. Fortunately, despite my age and David's concerns, there were no abnormalities found in my health. Relieved that the stress from the ongoing complaints hadn't manifested physically, I let out a small sigh while waiting for my bill. That's when I spotted a familiar face sitting with a baby in her arms. It was Emily looking down at her baby with a dark expression and sighing repeatedly. Looked so cheerful, I wondered what had happened to her. When I approached her, she seemed startled. She tried to speak, but then awkwardly turned away. I sat down beside her, close enough to offer comfort. You seem down. Is something wrong?
It's nothing.
But her demeanor suggested she was hiding something. I looked directly at her and said, "Please, I want to help you. If you have any troubles, just talk to me." I couldn't believe such a once bright person could look so downcast. Finally, Emily seemed to resign herself to opening up, her voice heavy with resolve. "I'm a single mother. It's hard raising a child, working day and night, constantly worrying about money." I was speechless at her painfully honest revelation. But if she was working all day and night, I wondered who was taking care of her child. Who takes care of your child when you're working? Rhea looks after my baby. I was taken aback by her unexpected answer. Rhea works from morning till evening. How can she manage that with her job? Emily, looking down, started to explain how she was troubling Rhea. Apparently, Rhea was the only one who knew that Emily had a child out of wedlock. Worried about Emily raising her child alone, Rhea had offered to help take care of the child. Suddenly, George's words about hearing a baby's cries came to mind. "Rhea is looking after your child," I asked.
She couldn't find time for her child, struggling just to earn enough for childcare and living expenses. Who takes care of your child when you're working? Rhea looks after my baby.
While David and I were away, Rhea had been taking care of Emily's child at our house. Up all this time, I thought the accusations were baseless, never imagining a baby was actually crying. Feeling guilty for thinking it was all unfounded harassment. "Unfounded harassment," I exclaimed. Why didn't she talk to me about this? Even a little consultation would have been fine.
She shook her head and said she would stop leaving her child with Rhea.
I can't burden Rhea anymore. She's already attracting attention at work because of this. Oh, it seems that Rhea had been taking time off work to care for Emily's child, but her increasing absences had begun to raise suspicions from her boss. Recently, it's become harder for her to take time off.
She declared that she would no longer rely on Rhea and would take care of her child alone.
I couldn't just stand by and watch Emily struggle. I wanted to help her in Rhea's stead. I longed to see her smile again, like she used to. With that determination, I offered to take care of Emily's child. There's no way I can just leave you struggling like this. Let me help.
With tears in her eyes and looking apologetic, thanked me. That very day, she explained the situation to Rhea.
This would relieve Aya of the need to take time off work to care for the child and would alleviate Emily's parenting anxiety. I immediately discussed the situation with my workplace and managed to reduce my shifts, deciding to take care of the child. A child still very young, was quiet, ate well, and slept soundly, but initially cried loudly upon realizing I was not their mother. It reminded me of David when he was young, bringing back nostalgic feelings. But there was no time to indulge in nostalgia. I had to inform George and the others about the real situation. Hey, I need to talk to you about something. I showed Emily the papers accusing us of lying about the baby's cries that George and his neighbors had been posting. Although she looked shocked, I explained the situation and suggested we go to George's house to apologize. It was on another day. Emily and I went to George's house to discuss the matter. I hoped that proper explanation and apology might stop the harassment. But soon as we rang George's doorbell, he answered. So you finally come to admit to the crying baby, you liar? George shouted as soon as he saw us.
Why are you here?
Why are you here? I told you we were done with each other, he said at the sight of Emily.
Who's that woman? And why is this liar here?
Overwhelmed by Julia's intensity, I opened my mouth to explain the situation.
He's my ex-boyfriend. This child is his. He refused to acknowledge the child.
I never even considered consulting a lawyer, thinking I had to do everything myself. It cost money and time, but I planned to have the lawyer calculate everything that's owed. But George was eventually ordered to pay child support, including the back payments he had missed. He started working a second job, desperately trying to make enough money. Meanwhile, with less financial worry, Emily reduced her work hours, gradually increasing the time she could spend with her child. Emily and I've kept in touch, and I've been able to enjoy a good relationship with her and her child. Recently, I've noticed her smile returning, the one she had lost. This with George and his family gone, a peaceful daily life has returned to us. After several months of this tranquil life, on a beautifully clear autumn day, I received exciting news from Rhea about her pregnancy. David, who had longed for a child, was overjoyed at the prospect. It looks like our days are about to become busy again. I'm eagerly waiting for the arrival of my grandchild, enjoying a blissful life. At the start of the new year, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened the door, I was utterly shocked. Ending there were my sister, who had disappeared 3 years ago, and my ex-husband. Regret washed over me for opening the door without checking who it was, caught up in the New Year's cheer. I never imagined that these two, who should have had no reason to visit me, would show up. As I stood there in surprise, my ex-husband put his hand on the half-open door and pushed it open with force. I was holding the doorknob from inside and nearly stumbled forward as I was pulled along with the door. They both looked at me and laughed crudely. "Long time no see. Well, sis, you sure have aged. Hey, ugly as plain as ever. You're nothing like your sister." Why did I ever marry you? It was a blight on my life. Yes, I was married to this man standing here 3 years ago, but he had a secret affair with my sister, a former model. But to cumbers of boarding instead of apologizing, they blamed me, saying it's your fault for being less of a woman and you were always busy with work and neglected your husband. They even claimed that they were the ones who should have been together and disappeared, saying they were pursuing their true love. I'm pregnant, that's why I came back. And that's why you bothersome divorced woman get out? Nothing's changed at all. The people, recalling those past emotions, I involuntarily frowned. Then my father, who had been away on business for a long time, appeared behind me. "Have you guys not heard anything? I'm Emily. Education is not necessary. Charm is what's necessary," said my beautiful mother, under whom I was born, along with my talented father. My father, a busy man, was rarely home due to work. I have a sister named Lily. She's angelically adorable, often praised for her looks and told, "You're so cute," by various people. "Can't wait to see how you turn out," by various people. Naturally, my sister is adored and spoiled by our mother, treated with utmost care. In contrast, my mother was very strict with me. Was always telling me to study. Her words were like a broken record. Despite being strictly raised, I have to say I was academically excellent. In contrast to me, the studious one, my sister, not great at studying, seemed to bring life to any room she entered, but she was very selfish. Using her adorable looks as a cover and shield, she effortlessly lied and navigated through life. Sometimes I remember moments from our childhood. That day, playing with a teddy bear my grandmother bought me. "Big sis, are you playing with the teddy bear?" "I want to play too." "Sure, what shall we play?" "House." "Let's play doctor." "I'll be the doctor." "Mr. Teddy needs surgery right away." And with that, my sister took scissors. But to my horror, she started cutting the teddy bear. "What are you doing?" "Stop, stop." "What's wrong? Why are you crying so much?" "The teddy bear Grandma gave me, Lily." In the torn teddy bear, my mother rushed over, shocked, then looked at my sister. Suddenly, my sister's eyes filled with tears. I just saw some threads sticking out on Mr. Teddy, so I thought I'd cut them off. Then you yelled, and I got scared and my hand slipped. "I'm so sorry. It's all my fault." Detation, my sister Lily, crying even more dramatically than me, made a big show of apologizing to our mother. With a concerned look, hugged Lily and glared at me sharply.
Emily, she's apologizing, so forgive her.
But Mom,
It wasn't on purpose. Forgive her. Don't keep crying forever.
even though I was the one hurt by the damaged teddy bear, why? Lifting my face, I met eyes with Lily. Hidden behind Mom, she stuck out her tongue and made a teasing face, smiling mischievously. Seeing that, I've been uncomfortable around my sister ever since. I remember that moment at times, and it always darkens my mood.
Emily, you're always frowning. Your lips are always pursed too.
Everyone says you're unfriendly and lack charm.
Lily said nonchalantly, with an angel-like smile.
I want to improve, but my frown has become a habit.
As we grew up, Lily started to hide our sisterly relationship, saying it was embarrassing to have an ugly sister around her friends and boyfriends.
She mocks me as plain and unattractive, but before tests, she cozies up to me for help. When I refuse, she tattles to Mom, who naturally makes me endure it, saying, "You're the older sister." Looks Lily aspiring to be in showbiz and active as a magazine model since middle school became more popular and her relationships became flashier. During my middle school years, I was getting along well with the student council president, but Lily swept him off his feet and they started dating. But she quickly discarded him, and my first crush faded away. Emily, did you get another wrinkle? Oh, sorry about the student council president. He said he liked me better. Let's both find someone good, huh? Oh, but you're not popular, so maybe not. Poor Emily. A plain girl good at only studying. You have a bleak future. My sister Lily, like a catchphrase, constantly repeats, "Poor you, and you have a bleak future about me." Suffocated by such comments, I struggled through those days. Peace with Dad away on business and Mom doting on Lily more out of loneliness. I felt relieved to be left alone. Actually, I studied hard through high school. My eyesight worsened and my frown deepened, resigned to wearing thick glasses and giving up on fashion. Meanwhile, Lily's popularity plummeted after graduating from teen magazines. After high school, she aimlessly wandered, joined a talent agency but made no effort in training or networking, remaining unremarkable. Still, she continued to charm those around her. On the other hand, I managed to attend a prestigious national university and, unbelievably, started dating a popular and handsome guy named Jack who pursued me intensely. Chick Fashionable himself advised me on makeup and clothes. I switched from glasses to contacts, started dressing up, and soon we were seen as a perfect match. Life felt fulfilling, and my frown seemed to soften. Then, Lily, who usually toyed with guys, seemed to have a serious boyfriend for once. Though she still had several backups. "Is this your boyfriend, Emily?" Just a fun one day. While I was on a date downtown with my boyfriend, my sister Lily suddenly approached us. "It's your boyfriend." Lily usually ignores me, but she spoke to me because I was with him. "Hi, my sister Emily is always so grateful for your help." She grabbed my boyfriend's hands and greeted him with puppy eyes, making him blush instantly. "That's your boyfriend." Lily usually ignores me, but she spoke to me because I was with him. "Hi, my sister Emily is always so grateful for your help." She grabbed my boyfriend's hands and greeted him with puppy eyes, making him blush instantly. Psychomptring and 20 improvesnately sister, you're cute. He was excitedly chatting with Lily, both of them getting along well. Really? Wow, that's so nice of you. Thank you. You're super handsome too, Jack. He was excitedly chatting with Lily, both of them getting along well. He kept repeating how cute Lily was, which hurt my feelings a bit. Oh, but Emily, you're the best. He quickly added, seeing my expression. I felt a bit relieved by his desperate attempt to cheer me up. So I graduated from university and got a job at my first choice, a major company. Despite being busy, things were going well with Jack, who worked in sales at a top-tier company. Interestingly, a year later, we were planning to get married and my parents were all for it, saying it was my last chance. And then the wedding day came in a flash. Wow, even plain folks can look good in the right outfit. With such tire makeup, it'd be a shame if you didn't look good.
On such a celebratory occasion, Lily couldn't resist making almost spiteful comments.
But I didn't care about her words anymore. I was about to start a new life with the man who was now my husband, and our new life together began, and though we were both busy, we were happy. However, 6 months later, my husband became even busier as he started his own business. Then I received a rare call from my mom.
Emily, can you come home? It's about Lily.
Turns out, Lily was dumped by her serious boyfriend. Devastated for the first time in her life, she was lashing out at everyone, including Mom. Expectantly, I went back home. Lily, seeing me, started ranting through her tears. Emily, listen. My boyfriend was awful. Can you believe he dumped me just because I was seeing 10 other guys? I was shocked by the number. It was even ranking him as my top one. Her lack of self-awareness was astounding. Why does plain and unattractive Emily get an elite husband? Puffed up with her self-pity and rudeness, I just nodded along to whatever she said. When I finally got home, it was late, and my husband, who was working, had returned before me.
Where have you been?
Well, Lily got dumped by her boyfriend and was pretty upset, so I went to talk to her.
Lily did. What up?
Well, it seems she wasn't enough for him. I hesitated to mention the 10 other guys, so I vaguely explained. That guy's terrible. How is Lily? She was pretty upset. Why are you so interested? She's my sister-in-law. I'm concerned. Something felt off, but I couldn't pinpoint why. My husband's business picked up, and our schedules became even more mismatched. I'm going on a business trip this weekend.
You seem pretty happy about it.
Yeah,
The deal you've been hoping for might finally happen.
a deal I've been hoping for might finally happen. I'm pumped. It's been a long-term dream, and it might come true. That's great. I'm rooting for you. Take care. Definitely. I seized this once-in-a-lifetime chance. I watched him leave with a smile, full of hope for his success. But when he returned, he was in a great mood. It went incredibly well, he said. It started around that time. My husband became glued to his smartphone whenever he was home. A few days later, I returned from a business trip a day earlier than planned. I noticed my husband's car in the driveway, which made me think we could finally have dinner together after a long time. I decided to cook something special, so without entering the house, I went to the nearby supermarket to buy lots of ingredients. Feeling a bit mischievous, I thought of surprising my husband. Atlee opened the door to find a pair of women's shoes in the entrance that I didn't recognize. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs and a sweet giggle. In a split second, I hid in the laundry room. Soon, I heard the front door open and peeked through the window to see my husband and a woman getting into the car. I instinctively took out my smartphone and snapped a photo. The woman was unmistakably my sister Lily. My husband didn't return that night and came back nonchalantly the next day. I confronted him right away. I saw Lily at our house yesterday.
Sure wasn't your imagination,
he replied, trying to feign ignorance. I showed him the photo.
Not me, huh? Oh, no point in making excuses now. Yeah, Lily and I are seeing each other.
Why would you do that? Well, Lily's cute, right? I've been a fan since her modeling days. I dated you because you kind of reminded me of her. You know, I'm not the type who struggles with women. I chose you because I wanted a wife from a good background, someone proper. When you started wearing makeup and dressing up, you looked decent enough. I felt a sense of superiority in shaping you. But, he continued, I never imagined you were Lily's sister. You're on a different level from her, but you're serious and promising at work, and I thought marrying into your family would be good. I was content for a while, but as my business succeeded and more high-class women approached me, you just weren't enough. After her big heartbreak, Lily, always treated kindly by my husband, started contacting him. They met a few times, and when she confessed her long-standing feelings, he fell for it. They pretended his business trips were just that they were actually romantic getaways. Turns out someone like me, high up in the social ladder, deserves a high-class woman like Lily, not an unattractive one like you. Once again, I had something important taken away by my sister, Lily. It was then that I felt an intense disgust towards my husband and sister for their affair. I made an immediate decision. Let's get a divorce. You're sure about that? Like someone like you, a plain Jane, will never get married again, you know? They'll be divorced. That's fine. Hectorine, I don't want to see your face ever again. I'll arrange a meeting with both families, so just leave. I kicked my husband out of the house, despite his weak attempts to resist the divorce. He left obediently. An overwhelming feeling of revulsion rose within me. I ran to the bathroom and vomited repeatedly until there was nothing left. Then came the day of the discussion. The two of them, my husband's parents and my mother, arrived at the house. My father, being far away on assignment, was only informed about the meeting. Lily, is it true? An affair with Jack. It's true. That's increase from Spectines. The room buzzed with surprise as my sister began her familiar act of the tragic heroine. I've been my fan since my teen modeling days. He supported me silently, even when I was at my lowest. Emily was always busy with work and couldn't support or comfort Jack. We comforted and healed each other. I never wanted to fall in love with my sister's husband, but I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. We've always admired Lily, and finally she said she loves me. She's promised to support me as a housewife. I know it's forbidden love, but I can't give you up. Me neither. In their tragic love story, I was completely turned off by the whole thing. But Jack's parents and my mother seemed to pity them. Ex-parents then made an absurd comment. Our son has always been a fan of your sister, and Emily is capable enough to live on her own. Even my mother chimed in. That's right. That Emily can manage alone, but Lily can have a secure future with Jack. It was clear I was the villain in their eyes. Betting my life, destroyed by my sister's manipulations and acting skills. My mother still took her side, even now. Now the memory of the teddy bear incident from our childhood flashed in my mind. Lily was hiding behind my mother, smirking just like now. The discussion even turned to Jack and Lily's potential remarriage. Our family tradition is that whoever has a child first inherits the house. I felt nothing but disappointment hearing my mother's excited voice. I decided to cut ties with this family and filed for divorce. I happily signed the papers and I headed to the office. The divorce was processed quickly and I felt surprisingly refreshed. Then my phone rang. It was my dad. Ups, Emily, where are you? At the office. I just filed for divorce. Seems I was the odd one out. The Willie and Jack are getting married. Sorry, Dad, you can disown me. What are you saying, Emily? They'll come home right now. Well, Happy New Year. We came to announce our marriage and Lily's pregnancy. Himp, I'm not in the mood to celebrate anything with you two. Ellie and Jack, not expecting my father to be home, were taken aback. While he spoke coldly, he said, "What about the promise then?" The one Grandmom made about whoever has a child first inherits the house. That's what you're here for. You actually took that seriously? I remembered my mother mentioning something like that during the divorce discussions.
Mom said, since Emily is capable, the house should go to me, who has no survival skills.
She didn't mention it when Emily got married on purpose. Ridiculous. I've cut ties with you. You have no right to this house. Why not? He said. Like you're breaking the promise of the house. It's your first grandchild. That's right, he said. You have no right. And the house promise is being kept. Besides, Lily's child isn't the first grandchild. At their eyes, following my father's gaze, reluctantly dropped. They couldn't help but notice my significantly pregnant belly. I'm surprised they didn't notice it right away. This house will eventually be Emily's home, so you two better leave. Wait, it's that belly for real? I can't believe Emily would have a child. Yeah, I said, after leaving me, she couldn't have found someone else. You must be stuffing your dress. As they squabbled at the door, my current husband, Kyle, emerged from the living room. What? Kyle said. Scratchers? Who is he, said. Enter. And a friend. He's my current husband, I said. Kyle, far more handsome than my ex-husband Jack, turned out to be Lily's the one that got away. Kyle and I were colleagues and had a good relationship even before my divorce. Half a year after the divorce, he confessed and we started dating. We were surprised to discover he was Lily's ex-boyfriend who had ended things with her over her personality and the fact she was seeing multiple guys. If Emily doesn't mind, I'd like to pursue a serious relationship, he had said, and we continued our relationship, happily marrying a year later. We were now expecting a child next month. Kyle, the second son of a wealthy family, had parents who were very understanding and kind people. They had even agreed for us to eventually live with my father. "Hello," I said. "I'm Emily's husband." Kyle greeted them with a gentlemanly smile. Why is Kyle with Emily? Like Lily, biting her lip in frustration, continued, "Did you marry her because you couldn't forget about me?" "No," Kyle said. "Ultimately, I didn't even realize she was your sister until we started dating." But to my sister's resentful expression, my husband Kyle replied with a chuckle. "Emily has always been hardworking and never complains, even helping others with their work and staying late. I've always had a soft spot for her. Back then, she was married, so I had given up, but now I'm truly happy. But Emily can't be prettier than me."
Can you please not insult my wife?
"Emily is wonderful." "You're beautiful, too." But Kyle's words, loaded with meaning, made Jack shout, "But how could you not get bored with such an unpopular woman?" The Lily is way out of her league, a better catch.
Meets you two really do suit each other, Kyle said with a knowing smile, making the couple falter momentarily before Lily regained her composure.
"Where's Mom?" "You didn't hear? Dad and Mom got divorced." "What? Why haven't I heard about this?" "It's because of you. That day 3 years ago, my father, fed up with Mom's biased treatment of us, had filed for divorce. Mom, who had poured all her savings into Lily, was left with nothing, as the divorce didn't include any financial settlement. Enriching Mom, who'd always believed charm is more important than education for a woman, was struggling a lot. Despite no longer being of an age where she could rely solely on her looks, her pride was too high. As a result, she couldn't secure a decent job. My father sincerely apologized for not noticing the treatment difference between his daughters while being preoccupied with work. I've always respected my hard-working father and loved him for teaching me so much when he was home. I never held any grudge against him, and he was the only one who ever stood up for me. Our relationship is now very good. You didn't know all this time. I asked Lily, surprised that she, the favored daughter, was out of touch with our mother. I ignored her calls, thinking Dad would scold me if he answered, but I didn't know about all this. If I had known, I would have answered. Hearing this, I realized my sister was truly selfish to the core. Anyway, we need this house. Let us live here. That's right, we're expecting a child after all. Why are you so desperate? Jack had a successful business and lived in a nice house. I couldn't understand why they were so eager to live in our family home. My business failed. I sold the company, but now we're buried in debt. We've lost our house and car. We don't even have money for tomorrow's food. And now that I'm pregnant, this is just unbelievable. But what goes around comes around. This is just payback for what you did to Emily, my father spoke. As my father spoke bluntly, Lily's tears streamed down her face. "You're abandoning your own daughter?" she cried. "Isn't that too much?" "What are you talking about?" Jack was stunned. I can't just kick out a pregnant woman in winter. Despite announcing their disownment, my father seemed conflicted. It's naturally cold outside in the dead of winter, and being homeless while pregnant would certainly be harmful to one's health. I was about to say they could stay for one night, but before I could, my sister spoke up.
Actually, I'm not pregnant. I was tricked by this guy. If I break up with Jack, can I come back? Emily, you don't mind, right?
What? What are you saying?
Shut up. It's all because you're useless.
I wish I'd never met you. Who spent all my money on bags and clothes? We're the worst empty-headed wife. Ek and Lily started fighting right there, leaving everyone in shock. "Emily, don't just stand there. Do something. Help me, Lily." Her hair being grabbed, was shrieking at me for help, even after all that had happened. "They'll call the police." My father threatened, reaching for his smartphone. Lily and her husband, Jack, froze in their tracks. "Wait, well, leave. Just don't call the police. If the police get involved, my life is over for Gurg." He's in a rush to leave. They were stopped by my father, who tossed an envelope at them. "This is severance money. Don't ever come near this house again. And that includes Emily. If you come back, I'll really call the cops." They hastily picked up the envelope and scurried away. "Dad, what was that about?" That was money I had been saving for Lily. My father's face looked somewhat sad as he spoke. After that, Lily and her now former husband, Jack, had daily explosive fights. First, their business failure had left them drowning in debt, and the money my father gave them quickly ran out. Lily was soon abandoned by Jack. Right after being kicked out by our father, Lily turned to our mother for help, but our mother, deeply resentful of being bluntly ignored by Lily over the phone, had no sympathy for her. My mother, harboring deep resentment, cut ties with Lily, saying, "You've ruined my life." Despite this, Lily shamelessly appeared before me, sharing her tale of misfortune with her usual dramatic flair. "I'm truly remorseful," she claimed, her face practically screaming, "so give me money." Her acting was convincing enough to fool anyone who didn't know her. If only she had taken her acting lessons seriously, she might have been in dramas by now, maybe even had a stable job. "All right," I said, and Lily's smile widened. People say that as you age, your inner self shows on your face. Her smile was truly grotesque. I handed her an envelope with $6,000. She immediately checked it and frowned. This isn't enough." I replied, "That should last you a month. Figure out the rest yourself." I then handed her a mirror. Reflected in, it was a far cry from beauty. I told her, look at the reality. Lily gasped in shock. I said, really? You're pitiable. As a liar with nothing but looks. Your future is bleak indeed. I threw back at her the words she had often used against me. As an older sister, I wanted to give her one last lesson. I warned her, your only asset won't last forever. After that, Lily stopped coming around, and her frequent social media updates ceased. She became unreachable. I gave birth to a beautiful daughter. My loving husband, Kyle, despite his busy schedule, actively participates in parenting. He dotes on me and our daughter, saying, you two are my reason to strive. My father adores my daughter too. Whenever he returns from work, he spends all his time with her, creating heartwarming scenes. My daughter, who I believe takes after Kyle, though he insists she looks like me, is destined to grow up beautiful. Emily, our daughter will surely be a beauty, just like you. I don't want to think about marrying her off yet.
Isn't it a bit early for that kind of talk?
Maybe, but kids grow up in the blink of an eye.
Oh, she's bound to be beautiful.
But I reminded him, it's not just about charm. She needs to be hardworking and independent like her mom. I added, if she's like Emily, she'll be the best of both worlds. Indeed, a conversation was filled with premature, but lively teachings, making our daughter laugh gleefully. I tried to scold them, but my face was already beaming with joy. Seeing that my husband, father, and daughter all returned even brighter smiles. The warm atmosphere filled the room. A loving family scene that I, who always frowned as a child, never thought I'd have. I hope to cherish and preserve this view forever. Here comes the poor farmer's country bumpkin. When you think of a wedding, you imagine the couple wrapped in happiness, surrounded by family, friends, and loved ones, spending precious time together. Ever would I have thought that I'd hear such demeaning words about my parents at such a beautiful occasion? Just being invited to attend my daughter's wedding, why should they be subjected to such cruel words? Right after, my usually quiet father said, let's go home. Yes, that one phrase seemed to set everything in motion. Both Emily and her husband would come to regret the words they carelessly uttered. I'd always say to take responsibility for your own words, and this truly applies to them. Being elite is useless if you forget what's important. People who don't understand the importance of gratitude need to be taught that there are consequences for such behavior. I'm Hannah Bongard, and I just turned 28 this spring. I live in what you'd call a regional city. I think I lead a convenient life. Most things are accessible by car, and most of my friends live nearby. Ever found living in my hometown inconvenient? I'm not into flashy lifestyles, so it's just right for me. Since the field I wanted to study was available at a local college, I commuted from home. After graduating, I was hired by a local specialty food company and still live with my parents. I work hard on weekdays and enjoy shopping with friends or my mom on days off. It's not glamorous, but I find fulfillment in these days. I have an older sister, Emily, who has always been the opposite of me, so we haven't gotten along since we were young. Emily has always been interested in fashion. I could tell even as a kid that she was fascinated by the trend-setting lifestyle of New York. She filled her life with her own style and fashion, always enjoying her outfit of the day. I think she was one of those popular girls in school, as always flamboyant, surrounded by friends, enjoying fashion and makeup. I used to think Emily was amazing. I had no interest in fashion, preferring to enjoy my beloved books and daily studies. Meanwhile, Emily was the type who didn't care much for studies and was always focused on fashion. It's strange how different sisters can be, but I guess that's just how it is. I never thought much about our differences. But Emily seemed to feel ashamed of being related to plain me. She often made sarcastic remarks. The incident from our high school days still haunts me. One day, I brought Emily her forgotten lunchbox to her classroom. When I called her name, I saw her in the center of a loud group of boys and girls. "Hey sis, you forgot your lunchbox, so I brought it for you." Ups Emily looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before and came over blaring at me from the doorway. Snatching the lunchbox from my hand, she whispered something unbelievable. "Don't talk to me outside like I'm your sister. It would be embarrassing if people knew you're my sister, as bringing a forgotten item, and you say that." That's then she raised her voice, waving the lunchbox, and returned to her group. I guess I left my lunch at the bike racks. Some underclassmen found it and brought it to me. She laughed loudly. She intentionally let go of the lunchbox, making a loud crash. "You won anyway, can't eat this. Let's go to the cafeteria." Emily just walked off with her friends to the cafeteria, leaving behind the lunchbox. Despite our mom waking up early to make it along with mine, that lunchbox was just left lying there on the classroom floor, discarded. All I could do was stand there and stare at it. Since that incident, I've been keeping my distance from Emily. We don't really fight, but we don't chat much either. To me, it's just senseless and unbelievable to treat a lunch made with such care so carelessly, wasting it. But Emily doesn't seem to think so. If we can't understand each other, it's better to keep some distance. Etching Emily often talked about wanting to go to New York, so after high school, she went off to a college there. Not that she had something she wanted to study in New York. I can't stand the idea of spending my college years in such a backwater. I'm finally a college girl. I want to enjoy fashion and social clubs, you know? It seemed like she just wanted an excuse to leave this area and our home. She chose her college based on the fancy name of the department and quickly moved out. After slacking off for 4 years, she joined the workforce, but people's true nature doesn't change after college. In fact, I feel like she's gotten worse. After college, she drifted apart from her friends and seemed to have no one to vent her work frustrations to. She started calling me more often, as if begging for someone to listen to her complaints. That the things she talks about are so unbelievable, they give me a headache. Listen to this. My boss has no eye for talent. It's so annoying. Calling in the middle of the night, "What's up?" It's just awful. That's the report I spent 5 days on. He won't use it. Did something happen? He said the format wasn't right, but come on. If it's not the right format, why not just redo it as instructed? But I don't really get it. More importantly, isn't it terrible that he won't use it even though I worked so hard? I understand that the end result is what matters, even if it took days to complete a task. But Emily just doesn't get it. She sees herself as a victim of a terrible boss who doesn't appreciate her hard work. Dealing with her woe is me attitude is just too much for me. I was getting fed up with her constant complaining when she dropped a bombshell. By the way, I'm quitting my job next month to get married. I'm bringing my fiancé home to meet the family soon. I was shocked in so many ways. My voice came out weird. The sudden announcement made my heart race. That sudden decision to quit her job was surprising enough, let alone her getting married. I know all about Emily's ex-boyfriends, and she's dated all kinds of guys. Lately, she's been saying over the phone that she's definitely going to marry rich, but honestly, I can't imagine who she'd end up marrying. You're quitting your job and getting married. Want to know about my fiancé? What's he like? You always said you wanted to marry a wealthy, handsome guy. Actually, he's a banker in New York, 5 years older than me. He's in sales and really good at it, so he has to travel for work a lot. I was at a loss for words, stunned on the phone. Oh, that's good for you. Talking to Dad and Mom about it is such a hassle. Just pass the message for me. We'll set up a day to meet. Emily has always had this bad habit of dumping everything on me just because it's a hassle for her. I've given up on thinking she'll change at this age. I told my parents about Emily's message and that she wanted us to set a date to meet her fiancé. Looks like we can set it for Sunday afternoon in 2 weeks, around 3 p.m. Is that okay? Sunday's fine. I'll let him know. Funsick, but on the promised Sunday, even when the afternoon rolled around, there was no sign of Emily and her fiancé. There was no reply to my messages, and they had no idea where they were or what they were doing. Wonder what's going on. They don't show up or call on such an important day. Do hours of waiting and worrying if they'd gotten into an accident. The doorbell finally rang. Next to Emily was a tall man who introduced himself as Ryder Johnson. He had the refreshing smile of a salesman, a slender build, and smart movements. I found myself staring at him. He looked like someone straight out of a movie. Sorry for the delay. Got held up at a client meeting. Ryder's always busy with work, remember? Anyway, come in. Hannah makes some coffee and snacks for him. Actually, I just had coffee at the client's. I try to limit myself to 1 cup a day to avoid too much caffeine. Ritter looked around, sniffing disdainfully, making me feel a slight irritation towards him. Oh, really? Then I'll make decaf coffee. Were you the sister? I heard you were. I'm Hannah, Emily's sister. I work in an office at a local specialty food company. Everyone knows too much caffeine affects your daily performance, right? But as the conversation went on, I started noticing something odd about this man. Everything he said seemed to irk me. He appeared self-absorbed, almost as if he was looking down on me. As if he was looking down on others, there was a disconcerting feeling while talking to him. And most importantly, I noticed right away that he lacked any words of gratitude or apology. Here's your coffee and snacks. This is decaf. Oh, right. Hey, isn't this cake from that department store's limited edition? The cream doesn't have much depth to it, kinda mediocre. Really? You think so too? You've such good taste. Well, I've been treated to a lot by clients, so I naturally pick up on these things. A cake deserves better cream, something with more richness and depth. These Emily and Ryder, with their fussy taste and know-it-all attitude, didn't even apologize for being late. They complained about the cake and coffee served. Frankly, I found Ryder's behavior quite rude. Even if he didn't like it, would anyone really complain so blatantly in front of others? But it was clear he was more impolite than I had imagined. That's that you tame evident when my parents met Ryder, who seemed to have just come from working in the field and had some dirt on his clothes. Thanks for coming all this way. I'm Emily's father. Oh, hi. Ryder glanced at my dad and immediately frowned. Sensing this, Emily started to scold my father. Wait, you're dressed like that for an engagement meeting? Well, I guess this is the best outfit your dad could manage. After all, we're in the countryside, not much variety in clothes. That's true. I was furious at their exchange. But my parents, either oblivious to or ignoring Ryder and Emily's sarcasm, continued the conversation with smiles. So, Ryder, you're planning to marry Emily. Yes, I'd like to marry Emily. That's wonderful. Emily, you've found such a fantastic man. Well, at my level, it's gotta be someone like Ryder to balance things out, Emily replied, puffing up her nose. Actually, I had to bite my tongue at her words and continued listening as a member of the family. So where will you two live after getting married? We're not sure yet. Ryder's so good at his job, he's always in demand at different branches. There's even talk of a promotion coming up. I'm being recognized for my performance in loan operations, even getting an award soon. I thought Emily could join the celebration as my wife. That's impressive. Quite the achiever, aren't you? My dad laughed heartily, drinking his tea, and my mom couldn't contain her excitement. As a treatment, honestly, I didn't know what to do and just sipped my tea, which seemed tasteless, trying to process everything. As we talked, the topic shifted to their wedding plans. Are you two planning a wedding ceremony? Of course, we're planning to have it at a famous hotel in New York. Enriching? I happen to know the manager of a hotel in New York, so we're thinking of getting him to arrange the wedding. Wow, that sounds exciting. I can't wait for the wedding. Emily and Ryder exchanged glances with sour expressions, as if they had just swallowed a bitter pill. Wait, you're coming to the wedding? A wedding is a place to express gratitude to those who have supported you and to declare your commitment to the future. Yet, I couldn't believe it when I heard that Emily didn't want our parents, her own family, to attend.
In New York to New York, huh?
I've got farm work around that time. But maybe I can hire some help. Yeah, it's our busy season. We should arrange for help early. If we arrange for help now, we should be able to go. Haven't been to New York in decades. AB stay for a couple of nights.
Emily cut them off.
No, you don't have to come. Why? Well, Hannah told me Dad hurt his back doing farm work.
That's Emily's gaze darted around nervously.
Yeah, but it's a wedding after all. Besides, Ryder's parents have already passed away due to illness and accidents, so it would really bother him. Covered her mouth in surprise, unable to hide her shock. I didn't know that. Sorry, Ryder. But we'd still like to see our daughter's big day.
How about live streaming the wedding?
You can watch it in real time from home. We'd prefer to be there in person, but considering Ryder's feelings, watching from home would be okay, right, Dad?
Yeah, I guess.
So Hannah, I want you to set up the live stream. You've always been good with computers. You can handle it, right?
Me?
Set up the live stream for your wedding. Just think of it as helping your sister, who's done so much for you.
I wanted to question what exactly she had done for me, but I had a feeling refusing would lead to more trouble later. It wasn't impossible, so I reluctantly agreed. Okay, I'll take care of the live streaming. How many people are you expecting to watch? About 500, I guess? Ryder has a lot of work contacts, and it's hard to narrow down. We want to see my wedding. I'll talk to the venue and set things up. This with 500 guests, there was a lot to prepare and wasn't easy. Back to the interact with Emily and Ryder during the preparations, but something kept bothering me. They seemed to mock me and our parents in their remarks. It felt like having a fishbone stuck in my throat, irritating and unsettling. And I can't imagine spending my life just working on a farm. It's a job that doesn't require much thinking, just physical labor. Working from dawn till dusk covered in mud? That's pathetic. Sure, as the eldest daughter, I'd be troubled if they expected me to take over. And I definitely wouldn't want a family covered in mud. They spoke without any knowledge or respect for our parents. That knew from the meetings, but our parents had no idea Emily and Ryder thought this way.
The wedding is going to be such a blast.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
I just can't wait to see everyone's faces when they see the bride and groom.
And when they see the food, they're gonna be amazed.
Oh, I know. I've been working on the menu for months.
I've been working on the venue and the music. It's gonna be a great party.
I stood up, glancing at Emily and Ryder as they bragged. We've already cut down the list. After that, Emily and I communicated more about the online wedding. In fact, our parents always say how glad they are that Emily is marrying such a wonderful person, so they must truly believe it from the bottom of their hearts. I understood my parents desired to see Emily's wedding. I once boldly asked Emily about letting our parents attend. Hey, about the wedding. What if we have relatives attend online, but just let Mom and Dad see it in person? They're really looking forward to seeing your big day. Or in person? At the wedding venue? Yeah. They always talk about your wedding at home. I know it's tough for Ryder, but can't we arrange just 2 seats for them? Then Emily burst into laughter and said something unbelievable. No way. What? But you said they were gone due to an accident or illness. I can't believe you fell for that. I had to say that because our parents were there. I couldn't believe my ears. Was Emily implying she didn't want our parents at the wedding? But it's a wedding, right? Isn't it a time to show gratitude to your parents? He's having our plain, country-style parents at a fancy hotel would be so out of place. Besides, they'd be there as my parents. It would be embarrassing if people knew they were my family. So you were lying when you said Ryder's family wasn't around. Of course, it was a lie. Ryder's parents and relatives are all coming. I was shocked to hear Emily laughing on the other end of the phone. His parents and relatives. What do you mean? Ryder's parents are company presidents, sophisticated and elegant. I can't have them in the same room as our parents. It's just not right. Anyway, I told them Ryder's parents were gone, so let's just stick with that. I ended the call with Emily, feeling angry and frustrated. Later, I continued to coordinate with Emily for the wedding. Then, one day, Emily and Ryder called me. Hey, what's up? I just wanted to tell you about the wedding. We've arranged seats for our parents, so please let them know. Really? They'll be so happy. Did you arrange this? Well, yes. After some consideration, we managed to make it possible for them to come. I was pleased to see Emily could be considerate when she wanted to. Thank you, Emily and Ryder. You must have gone through a lot to arrange this. Mom and Dad will be thrilled. But can we get everything ready in time? Don't worry about that. We'll take care of the arrangements. Just tell them to come without bringing anything. I was surprised to see Emily being so well prepared. Catcher Emily always had this belief that others would sort things out for her. It was surprising to hear her say, "Just prepare yourself and come over. That's all you need to do." Got it. I'll let Mom and Dad know. You're sure we don't need to bring anything? Well, I thought it would be too much to ask you to prepare everything at the last minute. Just come to the venue and you'll see. After hanging up, I immediately told my parents they could go to the wedding without worrying about preparations. They were overjoyed, almost jumping with happiness. Ryder must have a lot on his mind. We're grateful. It's nice to see Emily marrying into a family that understands people's feelings. It's common for parents attending weddings to rent their outfits and accessories. Knowing this, I wasn't surprised when Emily said to come empty-handed. I guess they'll wear rented tuxedos and formal dresses at the venue. I arrived at the venue early to set up for the live stream. While I was arranging the cameras and equipment, my parents arrived. As a people, I heard laughter when they appeared on the computer screen. Look at those country bumpkins from a poor farm showing up here. Wow, they really came with nothing. They don't belong in a place like this. How clueless can you get? In their dressing room, Emily and Ryder started mocking my parents too, spreading their country stink all over this elegant place. Weren't they ashamed? While my parents were getting ready, Emily and Ryder didn't stop their hurtful comments. It's unbelievable. that they invited their parents to their wedding only to insult them for coming. I felt sorry for my parents having to endure such disrespect. Felt sorry for my parents, but I couldn't just celebrate Emily and Ryder's marriage without addressing this. I took the remote and pressed a button. Suddenly their conversation in the dressing room was broadcasted through the loudspeakers throughout the venue. I also started the video on the computer. By pressing this button, the online wedding stream began. That Emily and Ryder never expected it to be pressed before the actual ceremony. That their insults and cruel laughter echoed in the hall. The dressing room was soundproof, so they had no idea what was happening outside. Their offensive words continued to play for a while around the venue. Those who arrived early or were connected online for the ceremony must have been shocked. Hearing such harsh words from a bride in a beautiful white dress is unbearable. My parents finished their preparations quickly and were waiting near the venue, hearing every word. My usually quiet father stood up and said, "Let's go home." Okay, my mother agreed, and they left the venue expressionlessly. Next, following their lead, other guests began to leave too. My parents were seen talking with people who seemed to be Ryder's parents. Inside the waiting room, Emily and Ryder were clueless about the reactions of my parents and the guests, which was ironically funny. The wedding staff rushed to Emily and Ryder, but it was too late. The venue was almost empty, with many noticeable vacant seats. What's going on here? Why is everyone gone? This is crazy, right? I teen action cursore lesik teens. The only crazy thing here is what you've done. Did I do something weird? Emily muttered timidly, to which I responded firmly, "Isn't it your own actions that caused this?" Emily looked shocked. Avidoni doki stak historian, do you realize how your parents felt about this day? Are you saying this is my fault? Emily glared at me angrily.
Can you believe almost everyone left?
How could this happen? Potato, you're supposed to be well respected, right? Is this the respect you've earned? Plus only a few people remained in the venue, looking uncomfortable and restless. Even the few people who remained at the wedding seemed uncomfortable, clearly restless from a distance. Oh, by the way, there's someone I wanted Ryder to meet. Would you mind? I said, calling over a woman. Ex-Esper teachers. Who is this? You wouldn't know her, Emily said. She's Ryder's girlfriend. What? I didn't know about this. Why are you here? Ryder appeared to be shaking and looked as if he didn't understand what was happening. This was happening? Did you know that Dad owns a small office building downtown? Well, sure, the one near the station, right? That's the one. He goes there sometimes to share the vegetables we grow on the farm. He got to talking with some of the workers there, and that's how he found out. Emily looked at me, her face saying she didn't understand what was going on. A woman Dad often chats with casually showed her phone once, and her lock screen had a man who looked just like Ryder. What? For a lock screen picture of Ryder? She said the man in the picture with her was her boyfriend. That's ridiculous. I sighed. Believing in such a soap opera story? How gullible can you get?
But when he told them about Emily and Ryder's wedding plan, she said, I thought so.
Brisikranuklam, the woman claiming to be Ryder's girlfriend, seemed lost for words and left the venue in tears.
Were you seeing someone else too? Stop joking around.
Then I decided to reveal the biggest twist. The guys seemed to be fighting right after getting married. But remember, the camera is still rolling. Well, you know what Ryder said. He has many acquaintances and wanted many people to watch the wedding online. You can't just stop the online camera midway. Does this mean this whole conversation has been broadcasted? It looks like it, I replied. Normally, no one expects a wedding to turn into such an embarrassing spectacle. What do we do?
This is bad, Ryder said. His face ashnal. What's so bad about it?
Getuli to explain it to her. This online wedding, people from Ryder's work are watching, right? Including people from his next transfer location?
No way!
Yes, exactly, I replied. He was looking forward to showing off to his colleagues and getting a promotion at his new position. Ryder turned pale and finally collapsed to his knees. After that, things went downhill for Emily and Ryder. Well, Emily, who had thought she was marrying an elite banker and the son of a major company's CEO, was devastated when the truth unfolded. Perhaps Emily was deeply shaken because she had firmly believed that Ryder was an elite banker. The banker and his family owned a prestigious corporation. However, it turned out that Ryder's father was just the owner of a small company located in one of the office buildings my father owns in the city. This revelation came to light when they attended the wedding, saw the seating chart, and recognized his father's face. Raced into the venue while my parents were about to leave. The man desperately apologizing was actually Ryder's father. Despite having already submitted their marriage certificate, Emily and Ryder couldn't call off the marriage and had to continue their married life, albeit reluctantly. Ryder's promotion at his new job was also jeopardized, becoming the guy who embarrassed himself at his wedding. Jason having their private insults and Ryder's affair exposed at the wedding was undoubtedly humiliating. Nevertheless, Ryder had no choice but to stick with his current job at the bank, now being treated like an outcast. His sales performance plummeted, and the wedding fiasco became a widely known tale. Moreover, someone recorded the guests leaving the wedding one by one, and this footage became a famous wedding mishap video online. Emily and Ryder, who never expected to become infamous in such a way, are now living covertly, wearing off-season masks and sunglasses when walking through the streets. As for me, I continue to live my days in my hometown. There's no glitz or glamour, but I still get my work done and enjoy shopping and reading on weekends. There are joys in a lifestyle that fits me well, and I feel that this is not so bad. I've also experienced a fresh start in my life. I've been getting along well with a salesperson who joined our company mid-year. He may not have outstanding academic achievements or career milestones, but his constant thoughtfulness for me is evident. Meeting a man with kindness like sunshine, I am now savoring my own happiness,